unleashing developer velocity in the age of AI. Are you guys excited to understand and supercharge your developers' performance? Well, the speaker will delve into some core components of developer velocity with examples of how organizations around the world have adopted these best practices to effectively move the needle forward for their organization. Let me introduce you to the speaker, Karthik Rameshkumar, Director, Technical Research Engineering, APAC, GitHub. He's a technology leader who has spent the better part of his professional life understanding the intersection between businesses and technology, with a career traversing roles such as being a CTO, technical CEO, co-founder, DevOps leader, customer support and success leader. Karthik believes that the world's developers still haven't gotten their fair chance. In his current role as the Director for Field Services in APAC West, Karthik leads GitHub Solution Engineering and Cloud Solutions for India, ASEAN, South Korea, GCR, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Please allow me to welcome Karthik Rameshkumar, Director, Technical Research Engineering, APAC, GitHub, with a huge round of applause.
Check. Coming through okay? Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, NASSCOM, for this opportunity, and I think I couldn't have asked for a better lead-in today, because I think Ravi hit the nail in the head when he was talking about applications for generative AI and how all of us will go ahead in this generational shift that we're going through, and mentioning Copilot as well. Thank you so much, Ravi, for that. And NASSCOM, thank you again for being a torchbearer of inclusion. To see sign language interpreters on the stage gives my heart a special place. So special kudos to NASSCOM. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm Karthik Rameshkumar, and I am a developer. Over the next 20 minutes, what we'll try to talk about is a little bit of a journey that I'll take you on in understanding a little bit about what your organization stands to gain with DevOps, what you can gain with developer velocity, and how we can take this direction forward together. That's how we're going to go through this, right? In terms of my career, as already told in the introduction, I spent a better part of my decade working at large technology organizations, being a co-founder myself, being at the helm of trying to understand what developer productivity matters and how you can measure it. And I realize now, after joining GitHub and Microsoft after 10 years, that I should have just gotten here first, because I think in their infinite wisdom, Microsoft and GitHub actually figured that out a long time ago. A lot of us are just late to the punch. So I work for GitHub. I love GitHub. GitHub is the world's largest developer platform. For anyone that doesn't know it, we have over 100 million developers there. It's an integrated platform that does end-to-end DevSecOps journeys for all of your needs. That's who we are. We can deploy anywhere. That's what GitHub is. So when I come to developer velocity and how we've looked at it, there are 3 core components that we feel are underlying for this: collaboration and scale, trust and quality, and talent and happiness. These 3, we realize, are core components that can help your organizations deliver better value, both to your customers as well as for your developers, by improving their productivity and improving engagement and developer experience overall. So we'll start off with collaboration and scale. That's, I think, a key topic that all of us love to talk about. But this talk that I'm going to give you today is going to be a little different. It is not going to be a session that you can just take away something that you don't want to understand. It's not about solving an imaginary scale issue. I'll try to find solutions for you that you can go back to work and apply tomorrow. So that's where we'll keep our conversation. We'll keep it real, we'll keep it live. And we'll talk about more of these solutions that we speak about, right? Don't take our word for it. Take Google's word for it. Take Dora's word for it. When we look at metrics of elite performers around the world, right? These are some of the numbers that you and your organization can stand to gain if you have a streamlined DevOps workflow. 7x fewer deployment failures, about 4 to 5x higher revenue growth. These are things that have been focused and documented. McKinsey, in a bunch of its studies, has done studies to understand that these are numbers that could be your organization's numbers just tomorrow if you choose to adopt these measures, right? So what are these key drivers? That's the key prospect here, right? I'll go into the key large items. One, obviously, is that tools are a top driver for velocity. It's about building architectures, testing for automation, and then enabling your key enablers. It's also about open source adoption across your enterprise, making sure that you mature your organization's perspective on that. And obviously, we always see that cloud is a very strong and key differentiator for how all of our organizations are actually using their end-to-end flows, right? So broadening your focus from a team to org is also seen as a very important step, right? If you look at the journey of organizations in software from the 2010s, you see that a lot of stuff has happened around consolidation, around tooling and engineering practices coming together across the organization, and then agile team practices as well, right? And I think over the next future, what we predict is that improving your agility by unifying your tooling, putting in more agile practices in your engineering, and using public clouds and hybrid clouds are going to be key pieces. And these are studies that we're seeing cut across large organizations across the world. So what do we have as takeaways that you can put to effect tomorrow in your organization? What is Karthik telling you, right? Train your developers to look for existing code before they write any new code. Anything can be searched on your tool of choice. Start from there, right? Inner sourcing is very strong. It's a very important piece of any developer's workflow, right? You can use private packages as version dependencies. You can also do configuration as code. All these things are available to us right now. Leverage them, right? And the more you simplify development workflows and improve sort of predictability and replicability with containers, these are going to adopt your organization's velocity a lot more higher as well. And obviously, I think I'm preaching to the choir when I'm talking about this. Automate, automate, automate. Every part of your workflow that can be automated from CI to CD, build your expertise and build capabilities to automate it. These are very important things that you can start from tomorrow, right? So moving on, I want to talk about trust and quality, right? Which is another key underpinning of how developers look at performance and how they look at their own satisfaction, right? So I'll take you on a story. How many of you here in the audience know about NASA's Mars Curiosity rover? Show of hands, please. Right? In 2011, when NASA's Mars Curiosity rover was launched, right, it's about a 100,000-mile journey from where it started to actually getting to Mars, right? When Curiosity rover was launched, and about a year after the Curiosity rover was launched, on a regular variant analysis, when people are trying to do some pattern analysis and vulnerability searching for saying, hey, is there anything error? They actually found out that there was a package in there that would have actually prevented the Mars Curiosity rover's parachute, the landing parachute, from actually opening up. For 1 second, right, take a step back and look at the consequences of this impact, right? It might look like a large check that someone has to cash that the taxpayers across the world wrote off, but on the other end, we're talking about human progress, human achievement, human development, the frontiers of space that were at risk that could not have been explored, right? It could have taken the entire mission down with it, right? So to the rescue came CodeQl, right? CodeQl is GitHub's solution, which offers advanced security solutions for all of our enterprises out there. CodeQl helped NASA understand not only how that bug worked and found a way to fix that bug for them, but also was able to find, over the next 20 minutes, was able to find 30 other bug variants. And all of those were fixed as well. And the NASA team had the infinite wisdom to have over-the-air updates. So in their ability to push over-the-air updates to an aircraft that was almost hurtling a year away already, they were able to push OTA updates so that those could be fixed. It's an important and powerful story of how the large community that we have together can come together to push mankind forward, right? So all that I'm talking about, everybody here will say, oh, Karthik, I know what you're talking about. It's not rocket science. You've spoken about this. Everybody knows this. Let's just shift left, right? How many of you here have heard this term? Put your hands up, please. Okay, I think I asked the wrong question. How many of you have not heard this term should have been the right question, right? So very easy, right? Let's just shift left. We'll give our developers more things to do. Our developers will take this on. We'll tell them how to do it. And yes, kumbaya, everybody's happy. Sounds good? Unfortunately, as a developer and on behalf of most developers out there, this is exactly how it feels, right? We've got a lot of things to figure out as developers, and adding more to our plate doesn't help. But doing it in the right way probably will, right? And I'm speaking on behalf of all of our developers out there. So let's take a step back to what Karthik's talking about. One is there's such high context switching. There's so many tools we all use. On average, organizations use 2 to 3 code scanning tools, right? There's a lack of looking at productivity as a focused metric. We aren't delivering as quickly as on business requirements and product requirements as we should be. And developers don't feel like they're empowered. They don't feel like they've got a voice in this. They don't feel like they've got a say. They feel like they don't have representation, right? And all of these are foundational pieces, and there's a lot more that come in to sort of why developers feel this way, right? And we've written at length about this as a community. And a lot of us are here in the audience, a lot of us outside have written about it. The whole world has written about how to shift left. I don't think there's an important security publication that has not. I think if I do a keyword search and then put a filter for some organization's name, everybody, including us, we've written about shifting left, right? However, it really hasn't seemed to have worked. This as a community is a tough question that each and every single one of us here in the audience, regardless of what part of the technology ecosystem you are on, should be asking yourself today, right now. The first graph that you see up there is actually a list of vulnerabilities in major open source projects in a 5-year period on GitHub. That graph is going up. For all the wisdom and awareness and evolution that we have, it should actually be coming down. Seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? And on the bottom right is research from GitHub's own security team, where we are seeing GitHub personal access tokens being exposed. And that graph is trending up as well. That doesn't seem to be going down either. So you've got secrets and vulnerabilities all out there in the open, right? It still hasn't seemed to have worked, right? So, and when you compound that to the problem that 80 to 90% of the software that we use today is open source software, right? And it costs about 100x to remediate a software vulnerability at a VAPT stage, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing stage. Imagine the consequences that are in play for your customers and clients and for your own products at the end of the day, right? Huge consequences that we're talking about that we're not taking into consideration. It's a very important step. So that's where GitHub's advanced security comes in, right? It's a developer empowered security platform that's native to developers. It's in their flow. It incorporates trust by design principles for developers to use across their workflows. We don't believe in fix by days or weeks or years. We believe in fixing in minutes. We believe in push protection. We believe in commits. We believe in real time, right? And to top it all off, just like GitHub has always been, it's community driven. There's hundreds of thousands of developers out there that are contributing to your company's security. So why use the security team of your organization when the world's security team is waiting to help you out? It's a very important question that you should ask yourself. So let's come to the last piece. And this one will be a bit more of a personal story for Karthik, right? And we'll go from there. So this is back in 2015. I dug very deep into Google Photos to find these photos for me. So this is Karthik when he was young and trying to understand. For full context for everybody, I was a biology student. I had no context on how to write code, right? I joined ThoughtWorks in second year. I joined BTech IT, no reason of my own, by own volition, somebody pushed me in. And then I had no idea how to write code. In my second year, ThoughtWorks was kind enough to offer me an opportunity to join in there and be an intern, right? And that's where I actually learned how to code for myself, right? Those pictures are actually from our first hackathon when the Ebola theme was going on and we did a working task force for Ebola. And that was my first actual exposure to sort of how it worked. That's when I realized that there is something called extreme programming and pair programming. When you work with somebody else, the pace at which you work increases exponentially and you're able to work much better. I realized that then, right? And if you haven't read this work by Kent Beck, I highly recommend. This is the only book recommendation in my talk. I highly recommend you go and take a look at it. It's a fantastic work that goes into it. It's age-old, but those principles still hold good to this day and age. So in that hackathon, basically what Karthik did was just these two things. It was a lot of turning coffee into code. There was a lot of trying to change things and trying to see what happens, right? This was basically it. This is practically what the entire hackathon was. That's when I came to age as a developer, right? Why is this story important? Because it's no longer 2015. Right? It's no longer the age when that was required. It's no longer the age of the early 2010s, right? It's now the era of generative AI. And I think Ravi went into a lot of depth into sort of understanding and giving you folks an interpretation of how much is already out there and how people are using it, right? And when you look at today, when you look at generative AI from the lens of just software development, in a world that's eaten by software, right? Developers have the most to gain from this wave of new LLMs and generative AI. I put a strong statement out there to tell all of you that developers will gain the most, right? And how do I say that? Is because we've done a lot of work on our own, and GitHub CoPilot is sort of that standing testament. Look at some of those numbers that I'm showing on screen, right? 55% of faster coding, developers saying they're more fulfilled, and about 46% of the code written is actually written by Copilot, for example, right? Are actual numbers that are coming out of our own studies, right? Which basically says that all three, the holy trifecta of developer metrics is already taken care of for your organizations. So a simple study for a developer to build a HTTPS server on JavaScript, right? About 45 of them used Copilot, 50 didn't. And look at the change of that, right? You can actually see about a huge improvement, about almost a 50% improvement in people trying, when they use Copilot, they get way faster at writing code. They feel way more fulfilled at writing code. So when we thought about this and when we thought about our security experiences working with the community and the ecosystem, we realized that we need to put the front forward also in terms of security, right? So we built out AI-based vulnerability prevention. We've built out facilities to give you secure suggestions, and we've also increased the pace at which our models work, and we keep constantly improving it. So we'll keep updating and improving that as well. And I'll give you a little bit of a glimpse into some of those features and pieces. So now I want to show you something about Copilot Chat, which I know is a bunch of stuff that all of you have seen on YouTube, but I took the liberty of actually trying to give you guys an example of that. So I know everybody here in the audience knows that your dev team has probably come to you one time and told you this, is that the dev team's code is basically a special snowflake and they don't want to write a unit test for it, right? I think that's going to be a thing of the past in the future, because take a look at the screen, right? You'll actually see where GitHub CoPilot will basically let you select a bunch of code on there and say, write a set of unit tests for this code. Very simple, very elegant prompt, no crafting involved. And yada, you already have the entire test written out for you for that piece of code. It's that simple. It's that effective. It's that easy for our developers, right? And for pull requests, I know a lot of you have a nightmare of a time managing pull requests, trying to find meaning in that mess of what your developer has actually committed. What does it mean when someone has pushed something somewhere? What is the work that they're submitting, right? I think that will be a piece of the past as well, because these uselet messages also will be going away, right? So what you will see is this. So if you look at the screen right now, you'll see an example of a commit that we're actually pushing through. There's a small commit message that we say to sort by title, for example, right? When the title is sorted, you'll basically start seeing that once there is a summary, it'll give you a template, sort of a telltale for you to create from there. You click on create, and then it'll already have created something. Let it spin up a little bit, and you'll see that it already created a generated sums. It said what it did, it added a feature, it created, modified the database, it added search books, it mentions the methods, and it also generated a cute poem for you, just because, I mean, it's an LLM, it can do that as well on the side, right? So why not? So you can do all of those fun stuff with it. So this is an example of what you stand to gain today, right? And for all sysadmins out there today, if you're trying to write something of a regex, for example, I know how difficult it is to Google for sources. Try to understand how to write a regex. I still Google on regex to write my regex. I still don't know how to write a proper regex. I haven't understood the syntax, for example, right? So for me, it's a struggle every day. So here is an example, right? If you want to list JS files, it's as simple as putting a double question mark and just writing something in natural language. You no longer have to be an experienced sysadmin or certified to understand what commands you have to write. GitHub Copilot will simply guide you to the commands that you want, ask you whether you want to run this command or not nicely, and then go forward from there as well, right? So this is sort of the possibility of what exists. And for all of the developers out there, documentation is the key piece, right? Trying to understand how to work with existing libraries, how to understand how to use code snippets in your code, right? That's going to go away as well. So if you look at GitHub Copilot for Docs, for example, you can basically have a library which basically has a full documentation of everything that your code accomplishes or tries to do. You put in a search request, you put in a term and a prompt, and you can search for it. For example, your component renders too often, you can ask for what you wanted to do. If you'll actually go to more deeper troubleshooting, and you can add your docs links and then reference from there. So all of these tools are built by GitHub for your developers to use, for you to improve your developers' velocity directly. Right? The other two things we spoke about will impact it indirectly, but these ones will hit your developers and their workflows directly. Right? So I want to end my session by asking one small thing of all of you. Right? India and NASSCOM as well has been a torchbearer for innovation for all of us, because code karega India, tabhi to badega India. That's what I believe in. Right? So I have a standing statement to all of you to say, the world's been waiting for a while, but I think with this new generation of what we have to achieve, the world is waiting. And I ask every single one of you from here, let's build from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think that was indeed a wonderful session. And I'd like to invite Shalini Mishra, Group Digital Offerings Leader, Soprost area, to kindly felicitate our speaker. Thank you so much.